Secure connection. There we go. It's starting to do it now. Just takes a minute. So I always have a goofy smile on my face because I just never know. Hey everybody, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Today, we have a fabulous culinary demo from a very wonderful chef. His name is James Sant, and he's going to be making, I'm calling it vegan nachos. It's going to be in a bowl, but to me, it's still nachos. And wait till you see what he's able to do, even without gluten and without grains. Please welcome Chef James Sant. It's so nice to meet you.
So great to see you too, Chef AJ. I've been on stages before and after you at Veg Fest for many years and been following you for a long time. So I'm very thrilled to be doing something with you on this show.
Well, I'm so happy to meet you. You went to the same culinary school I did. About 10 years later, you became the culinary director there. And you actually were referred by Sherry Soria, who I asked to be on the show, and she will a little bit more in the future. She said, no, we must have you on. So I'm excited to see what you're able to do. Your kitchen is beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I live in a really small, kind of a mini house. It's like a cabin in a sculpture garden with bamboo and redwoods. I'm in Mendocino, California, just up the street from the Stanford Inn that you had on the show last week.
Yeah, have you ever been to the Stanford Inn?
Oh yeah, of course. The Ravens is legendary. They have a great vegan restaurant, and one of their chefs, Sadhana Burkow, actually came to work for me when I was creating my raw vegan fusion program. And the queso cheese that I'm going to make, her and I developed together. So yeah, we've done a lot together with Stanford. They're great.
Well, I can't see what you have in store for us.
All right. So what I'm going to do today is, believe it or not, make a delicious, savory, crisp tortilla chip. I'm going to show you how to do that grain-free, believe it or not. And so it's going to be gluten-free, but it's going to be packed with protein and vegetables and fruits, and really, really delicious. And you can, when you make them, you'll end up with a bunch, and they last for months. So when I go and make these, I fill up 2 half-gallon jars, and I'm good to go for 3 or 4 months. So, and I'd much rather have these than going for any of the junk vegan food, processed food that you can get in the store. So my drill is, if you can make it from scratch, learn how to do it. And so I'm going to be going over the soaking and sprouting of the grains and what vegetables are involved here, and other grains like hemp that are going into it, flax seeds, how it all comes together, spreading it, dehydrating it in the dehydrator. And I can turn that off now so don't have the noise competing with us. And then we'll go on and make the queso cheese. I'm going to show you how to make a faux Mexican meat, so we can come together with a Buddha bowl of a nacho that will blow your socks off. And I'm actually going to make a purple Tomatillo salsa to go on it too, because
oh my God, purple's my favorite color.
Purple tomatillos, and they are to die for. They're so sweet and different than the normal tomatillas. They're not really sharp in flavor, so I really love them. Okay, so to start off, I have the buckwheat and the almonds. And these almonds were raw, of course, and I soaked them for 8 hours and then sprouted them. You can see the little white tails are coming out on the almonds. The tips are coming out because I do buy raw, unpasteurized almonds. You have to do that from the farmer. When they're in the store, they pasteurize them, and they most of the time won't sprout for you. So if you want them to sprout, you don't have to make them sprout, but it's a good idea to do that. Also, soaking the almonds gets the enzyme inhibitor off the outside of the almond. There's an enzyme inhibitor in the paper that's on the almonds that you could peel off that is actually not good on our gut, because that enzyme inhibitor is there so that insects and molds and things won't grow on the nuts, but it will soak right off. So that 8-hour soak, first I actually rinse them and clean all the dust and dirt off of them, and then give them a good 8-hour soak, then put them in a strainer like this on a bowl and let them sprout. With the buckwheat, I only need to soak them about 20 minutes, and these are hulled buckwheat. You can buy hulled or unhulled buckwheat. This one has a skin on. These are hulled over here, and I'm using hulled buckwheat. Buckwheat is an amazing grain. That's one of the things that makes these crackers or chips so satiating, and they will fill you up after eating 4 or 5 of them. It's not like you're going to open a bag of tortilla chips and go on a binge that's going to, put a lot of calories and bad food into your body. These are going to fill you up and satiate you. And buckwheat is actually an amazing grain, not really a grain. And it is gluten-free, and it's actually related to sorrel and rhubarb, believe it or not. And it has these fibers in it that will lower the viral bacteria in your gut and promote good gut flora. And they're rich in manganese and magnesium, iron, phosphorus. Buckwheat is a great grain to use, and it's gluten-free. So I'm going to start popping this into a bowl. Grab one of my nice mixing bowls here. I threw this, by the way. In my previous life, I was a production potter, so I always like to make stuff in my own bowls. So I'm going to pour in the almonds and the buckwheat, and those are soaked and sprouted. And
James, excuse me for interrupting. There's somebody watching that has an almond allergy. Could they substitute a seed of any kind, perhaps?
they could. I already have seeds in here. I've got hemp seeds and buckwheat, which is a seed also. And you could actually add some sunflower seeds as well, if you wanted to. And you'd have to adjust the recipe a little bit, but I think that would work. I have thought of that because there are some people that have nut allergies. Almonds I do like because they're the most alkaline nut. And I'm all about pH balance. That was part of my healing journey that got me into understanding the power of living foods. And so I'm always looking at the acidity of nuts. Nuts have omega-6, which can throw you really out of whack if you're not careful. So you always want to be balancing out nuts that are high in omega-6 with omega-3 to round out the 3-6-9 ratio of your omegas. And so I have hemp seed, which is going in here, which is high in omega-3. And I also have ground flax seed, which is really high in omega-3. So we're balancing out those omega-6s in the almonds and rounding this out so it's healthier for your gut and for your omegas. And omega-3 is a really great thing to have in your body, as we all know. So I am very aware of balancing out of nuts and seeds, and everyone should be, if you are a vegan especially, and turning to nuts for protein, because they can get you in trouble in your omegas if you're not careful. Okay, this is the hemp seeds that I'm using here. And I love hemp seeds. They're really great for all kinds of different things. I put them on crackers, in salads, all kinds of stuff. So
one more question. People are asking, are almonds truly raw? And somebody's saying, and the ones from Spain exempt from the pasteurization process?
Yes, and I get them straight from a farm down in the Santa Barbara area that will ship them to me without pasteurizing them. If you're buying them straight from the farmer in California, they can sell them to you without pasteurizing them. When they send them to the store, that's when they have to pasteurize them. So when they're in the market, they're pasteurized. Now you can order European almonds, organic European almonds, and they're not pasteurized because they don't have the pasteurization law in Europe.
That's good to know. And we have so many comments on your beautiful bowl. Where did you get it?
I made it.
Do you sell them? It's gorgeous.
So it's one of my favorite glaze combos that I made on my personal dinnerware set. And then I'm going to put in corn. These are corn tortillas, so tortilla chips. So we're going to have corn in there. Now corn, if you can get it fresh, of course, you want to do that. And actually, if it is organic and clean, I don't throw all of the leaves and the strings and everything away. And even after I've cut the corn off of it, the stalk goes into my soup stock bowl. When I'm cooking in the kitchen, I have a bowl of all of the onion skins, the garlic skins, the bottom of the cauliflower from the queso, the skins from the butternut squash, the corn. Corn is really sweet in a soup stock. So put those stalks of the corn into your soup, your bowl of goodies to make your soup stock. So, and then when you cut it off the cob here, also take a spoon and really milk the cob. You're going to get a lot more bits of corn that didn't get cut off in the initial slice when you're slicing off that corn. That way you're using all of the goodness of the organic produce that you're buying. And then again, save that stock, that core for the stock. Then we have bell peppers. Little fact here about bell peppers most people don't know. Here's 2 bell peppers. Do you know which one's the girl and which one's the boy?
Oh, I heard about that with the 3 bumps versus 4 bumps.
Yeah. So this is the female and this is the male. The female and male, they only have to know about this when they're hybridizing and breeding them and stuff. But there's curious little facts. The seed bed is usually a little bit bigger in a female bell pepper and a little smaller in the male. And the female can actually be higher in vitamins and vitamin C. Doesn't really matter which one you buy, but just a little trivia on bell peppers there. I love bell peppers. That's what paprika is made out of, which is one of my favorite spices. And most people don't know paprika is just red bell peppers. I wouldn't recommend buying green bell peppers. Those are just an unripe yellow, orange, red, or purple bell pepper. And
I never liked those. They always give me indigestion, but the other colors don't.
They give most people indigestion. And I used to think that bell peppers gave me indigestion, but that was back when I only bought green ones. And then I learned about that they were just unripe. And when the sugars developed in them, they have vitamin C, B6, K1, B9, E, vitamin A. They're 92% water, so they keep us hydrated by eating them. I love them. They're just fantastic. So I've diced up some of those, and I like putting red and yellow. I only have yellow going on this batch, but feel free to mix it up. And if you like your chips a little spicier, then go into some Fresno chilies, or I wouldn't necessarily put green jalapenos in here. I put red jalapenos or red Fresnos like I have right here, little Fresno chilies. Fresnos are a little less hot than a jalapeno, and I really love them. They have a real depth of flavor and a sweetness to them. So those are going in here too. I've already diced up my Fresnos here, so I'm going to put those in here. And then onion. And it doesn't matter what kind of onion. I wrote sweet onion on the recipe because I love Walla Walla sweets. But right now I have some red onion, and it doesn't matter. Any kind of onion will do. If you don't have onion, you can put in some shallots. If you had those, you could even put green onions in here. Just some kind of allium that brings in that pungent side to the flavor in the chips.
So James, Diane says if I don't have a dehydrator, could a convection oven work?
Convection oven. I'll get to that. Hold that thought. We're going to cover that. Okay, next I'm going to put in taco seasoning. And this is really great. And if you're on a no salt diet, by the way, I do recommend bumping up some of the other savory flavors. And these chips will work without salt. I am putting a little bit of salt in these. They're for me, and I don't totally restrict my salt. But I have a little bit of salt that will be going in. And in salt, I always choose a healthy salt. I use Redmond real salt. That comes from this continent. It doesn't have a huge carbon footprint from coming from the Himalayas, like the pink Himalayan salt. And I like to support the industries in our country. And that comes from the Utah area, the old Great Basin of the ocean that used to be up there. So it doesn't have, and this is important too, sea salt can have pollution because the oceans are really polluted all over the world now. And so I'd rather, if I'm going to be using a salt, use the Redmond real salt from the ancient bed in Utah that is really mineral rich. If you're going to talk about salt being healthy, and salt isn't a spice, actually to chefs, it's a activator. We call it an activator. It activates chocolate. It activates the flavor of nuts. It activates anything. And that's why chefs, it's hard to pull that salt away from a good chef because we know that it brings brightness to all the flavors in anything, even in sweet dishes. And you've probably noticed that in desserts, that it brings them alive too. So now the taco seasoning is from Savory Spice in Santa Rosa. I love that shop because they only use really fresh spices, and I really appreciate that with them. And then I have turmeric, and turmeric, of course, is an anti-inflammatory. So whenever that's being involved, I'm either going to put in some cayenne or pepper. So I have white pepper going in here too, which will activate that turmeric. And so whenever I'm using turmeric, pepper is going in. Because why use it and not get the full anti-inflammatory quality of the turmeric for your body? Okay, so then we have the flax seeds. These are golden flax seeds, also rich in omega-3. I did make it's a powder that you're going to put in, not the whole flax seeds. You could soak them and put them in as a soaked mucilagenic kind of goo if you want. But truthfully, when you're eating flax seeds, you got to really chew a lot or they're not going to release the omega-3s for you. So you really got to chew your food well if you're eating. But if you grind them up, you're getting all of those omega-3s. And when you grind them up, they help to bind everything together, which is what I want them to do in this recipe. Okay, so I did grind them ahead of time. If I don't recommend for anyone to buy ground flaxseed. I don't even think they should sell it at the store. I think that should be illegal. It bothers me when I see the huge bag of ground flaxseed in Costco, because once you've ground these open, the omegas, or the oils that hold the omega-3, go rancid almost quicker than any oil out there. And so that big black bag of ground flaxseed is not going to do you any good. It's going to go rancid, and it's actually carcinogenic when it is in a rancid state. So buy them whole. They can just sit on the shelf. They're totally stable and fine as a whole seed. You can throw them in your Vitamix and just in a few seconds turn them into a powder or into any little blender that you have. Even a spice mill or a coffee grinder will do it. Okay, so grind them up. Grind what you need. If you have a little extra, put it in the fridge until you use it. You can put them in your smoothies, on salad, anything. They're a great source of omega-3. Okay, so those went in here too. And I've just got all this beautiful color in my bowl here. I'm going to bring all that together. And then I'm going to go into a Cuisinart, and it's just a food processor. There's other brand names too. This happens to be Cuisinart that I'm using here. So with an S blade in here, and you can't do this all in one big batch. Okay, it's not going to work. It's going to be too much for here. So just do it in stages, and I fill it up probably about a third of the way in the Cuisinart, and I'll show you what I do to make sure that it's mixing well as I go here. Put the lid on. Uh-oh, just a sec. Got to get plugged in here.
James, I don't mean to interrupt you. It's just that my chat goes really quickly and I don't want to forget the questions. So even if you can't answer this one right now, at some point, Janet wants to know if you could share a little bit about your healing path and why you believe in living food sometime during the broadcast.
All right, I will when I'm spreading the crackers. That's a good, and I had plugged it in to talk about right then. Okay. Now it's all broken up, but you can still see the little bits of every item in there. And that's what I want. I don't want to keep blending until this is just a smooth dough. That's a boring chip. If you leave the little bits of Fresno chili and bell pepper and corn and buckwheat and stuff, you're going to have a crunchy, wonderful experience as it spreads across your tongue when you eat these chips. Okay, so you don't want to go too far. And you notice I shook it. I grabbed the handle on it and shook it while I was going to bounce it around and move the things around so that if you just sit and blend it without shaking it, the bottom's going to get far more blended than the top by the time it all comes together. So you got to really be vigorous with it and shake it around, and then you're good to go. Okay, so I'm going to pour a little bit of liquid in here. My almonds didn't soak as long as I usually do, so they weren't quite as hydrated. And I know enough in doing this dough that I can put a little bit more water in there if I need to. If they had soaked for 4 more hours, then they would have had more water in them. And it would have, I can just tell that I want it to have a little bit more liquid so that I can spread it easier onto the tray. Okay, so I'm going to set this, I can blend that up later. I'm going to go into spreading these on the tray. So this is a Excalibur 9 tray. It comes with these trays, and then these trays have a sheet that goes on top of them. And then I have some cheating tools here I'm going to show you too. Like so. And this sheet is what you're going to put crackers on, because of course you can't spread them on the screen that comes with the dehydrator because they're going to fall right through it. Okay. So, but I don't like to spread on this tray. It's uneven and it's hard to spread on. So I'm going to move my cutting board for a minute and just put the sheet down, not with the tray under it. Okay. And that's a better way to do it. You'll see that it works much better for you. Then I'm going to take about 2.5 cups of my batter, is what I've figured out for a 14-inch square dehydrator tray, okay? Now, if you don't have a dehydrator, can you make these crackers? Absolutely. And you can put them on a parchment sheet, on a cookie sheet, and then do them in the oven, okay? And you most certainly could do them in a countertop oven also. But I'm going to tell you to use the lowest setting on that oven, okay? That's in the dehydrator. It's going to be much lower. Technically, these are a raw chip because I'm going to do them in a dehydrator and not bake them in an oven, okay? But you can do them on low in the oven, and I'll go into a little bit more. Wow, I blended up 2.5 cups exactly. That's called chef's intuition there. Okay. So I'm going to plop that out onto the sheet here, and then I'm going to use a tool which I think every dehydrator should come with. If you're a chef and you make crackers a lot, you love them. It's called an offset spatula. Okay, these spatulas that have a little bit of a bend in them and are very flat so that you can spread things really easily with them. Then you can take it and push out your dough on your sheet here and spread it around. Now you could use a rubber spatula if you don't have one of these, but this just makes it go much faster and much easier. And what you're going to do is just create a square as you go around here. Now, living foods, why I got into living foods. Okay, I had a serious industrial accident that collapsed the C5, 6, 7 disc in my neck and tore up my shoulder back in Bend, Oregon, in a warehouse. I was painting for one of the most popular art-to-wear artists in the country, painting silks for her in a big warehouse. And I was pulling up some silks, and the machine collapsed and yanked my arm to the ceiling, and a big machine fell down on my head, and it wasn't a good scene. And they wanted to do neck fusion surgery on me, and I did not want neck fusion surgery. Being in Bend, Oregon, there was a lot of athletes there and a lot of people that I knew that had had fusion surgeries of different kinds. And if you start fusing the vertebrae in your neck, after a little while, you can't move your neck. You're going to be turning like this instead of being able to turn your head. And I was bound and determined to figure out how I wouldn't have that surgery. And that opened me into the discovery of how to control inflammation. And the caveat that I also should tell you is that I don't do drugs. And by that, I mean Western medicine drugs. They freak me out. And I didn't want to be on the anti-inflammatory drugs they had me on, and the painkillers and the sleeping pills, because I was in a lot of pain. Could not move my neck without fiery shooting pain down both my arms, because the nerves that come out of your neck down your arms were collapsed on. And so I learned about controlling the pH in my body. Well, all raw food is alkaline going into your body. You can see I'm using the back side of the spatula to straighten the edges of the crackers here. And you can see it pretty easily can be turned into a square. It doesn't take that long. And you just want to square off all the edges like that. Take your tray and slide it right on there. It's really easy. Slides right on. There they are, all spread perfectly, ready to go in the dehydrator. Then I'll pop them in here. And they're going to go in there, and I always start my wet ingredient dishes in the dehydrator at 135 for an hour. And that will take care of any kind of unbeneficial bacteria from growing on them. The old raw food books in the early days used to say, pop it in at 105 and just go. That's like in a hot room with sunshine, and all kinds of bacteria potentially could grow on food. So be food safe. When you're doing something that has wet ingredients like this, put it in for 135. It's not going to go all the way through it in the first hour. Then drop it down to 120 and finish them off at that temperature. Okay, so 1 hour at 135. Then I'd let them go overnight. I made a batch last night and got it started. And I'm going to pull them out here. And you can see now they're much more golden and have gone through the first stage in the process. So back to my story. I got the book, The pH Balance, And I figured out that 7.365 is the magic number for the body at which inflammation just doesn't happen. But it's hard to sustain, and it's not really doable unless you're in a medical emergency where you really want it. You can get there, but to get there, you got to cut out all acidic food. And so when I looked at that and I said, well, what are the high acid foods? How can I have alkaline fuel source coming in? Because just waking up and moving and getting out of bed, every time you move your muscles and fire them off, you're creating acid in your body. So you want your fuel source coming in to be alkaline to balance that out. And I got urine strips. These up here, I have them right in the kitchen because I test regularly, that you can just test your urine with. And there's a little color gradation here, and they'll turn a different color, and you can hit the mark and see if you really have an acidic diet or not. And if you've got arthritis and stuff, you should know about this. And I recommend the pH Balance, the book. It changed my life. And the healing blew my doctors away in Ben. Absolutely, when I plugged this in. And so I was doing smoothies and salads only. And within a week, I got to 7.365. And the minute I did that, the swelling went down in my shoulder where I had surgery. I'd never had the neck fusion surgery. I got a traction device and slow muscle coordinated exercises for my neck, and brought my neck back, stretched it out, used MSM and minerals in my supplements to bring back the cartilage. MSM is an incredible thing also. And it was an amazing journey. And I became obsessed with this youthfulness that it brought to me. My children saw me months later and said, Dad, what's going on? You look so much younger. And that was because of what was going on with the pH balance and turning the clock back for me. Now I'm bringing my cutting board back to the chips here. I've pulled the ones out that went overnight, and I'm going to show you how to cut them out. Okay, so you're going to take your chips and lay them down, get a cutting board that's as wide as the chips, put the board on the chips, flip them over, and you can lift these two off, and then carefully peel this one back, like so. Save this, you'll need it in a minute. And then you can take a long chef knife and cut out your chips. Now, some people score their chips before they put them in, and you can do that, but they turn out really rough. I like mine to be beautiful, and you'll see these do turn out really beautiful. So I'm cutting down the middle and then cutting each side in half. I end up with 16 squares, okay? What I'm showing you is the tortilla cut here. Then you're going to go and cut each one of those into triangles. It goes actually pretty quick. When I'm making these, I'll fill the entire 9-tray dehydrator. And by the way, the recipe that Chef AJ has to share for these chips is enough to fill a 9-tray dehydrator. If you're not wanting to make that many chips, just cut it in half, the recipe, and make a half recipe. And that'll be plenty to be making on some cookie sheets in the oven. There we go. So now I have all triangles, just these tortilla-shaped triangles, okay? So now I'm going to put this back on with the screen, because I got to go back into the dehydrator, carefully on there, stabilize, and hold them down tight so they don't slip out while you flip, and flip fast. Boom, okay? And now you lift your cutting board off, and there they are, ready to go back into the dehydrator. You can't really see the cuts too well on there, but they're all cut into triangles, like so. And now they're going to go back into the dehydrator, and they'll go another 4 or 5 hours, okay? And then they'll be finished. And so that's the tortilla chips, and they are spectacular. I can show you. Oh, I skipped one little step I was going to talk about here. If you love fun shapes, my friend Brenda Hinton, also a graduate of Living Light, has a company called Rossum Creations. She also makes nut milk bags that are killer. And you can go to rossumcreations.com and order these templates that fit perfectly onto the dehydrator trays. And then you can get a bunch of little round chips. Or if you're making tortillas, she even has a shape for the round tortillas, okay? I love these. It's a really genius idea that Brenda came up with for the Excalibur, and she has them for the Sedona dehydrator also, because it's a different size shape on that one, okay? Those are really fun to use. I can show you the finished chips here that I just made. Let me come a little closer here. So these are the round ones. These are the classic tortilla shape here. And these are the big tortillas, I should say, tortilla chips, and the bigger. And you could actually, when you're flipping them and cutting them out, you could push these down into a bowl. I've done that. And then they become little taco bowls that you can fill with a salad, okay, with the round ones, which is really fun to do. But they're all really crispy, savory, delicious, fun to do a lot of different things with. The next thing that I'm going to mention is my Mexican faux meat. This is a really easy meat to make. I soak walnuts. This one is made with walnuts. And there are mushroom meats that I have that are vegetable based if you want a non-meat nut, non-nut meat. You can message me on Plant Food Chef on Facebook and I'll share that recipe with you. But this one is walnuts. I do love it using walnuts. Walnuts, by the way, they're the only nut that has the 3-6-9 ratio. So you can eat more of walnuts every day than you could any nut and not have to worry about balancing out the omegas in them. And they're really great, everyone knows, for brain health. That's why they look like a brain. It's like nature has these little clues for us on what this is good for. And then I'm using sun-dried tomatoes, and these are heirloom tomatoes that I sun-dry myself. And the recipe for doing that is on my Facebook page, Plant Food Chef. Really easy to do, delicious. This is my favorite way to do any extra tomatoes that I have. And if I go to right towards the end of the farmer's market. I go early at the farmer's market to get the good first pick, but then I'll come back at 6 o'clock when they're closing, and they don't want to take heirloom tomatoes home that are too ripe and cracking. And you can get them dimes on the dollar. Okay, and then you come home and you fill your dehydrator I season them first with some Italian seasoning, and then you can put them in the dehydrator and you've got these wonderful sun-dried tomatoes or dehydrator dried tomatoes. So that's what I'm using in here. Then I have Fresno chilies in there, and I have some fresh tomato too. This is a little heirloom tomato diced into there. And then onion powder, garlic, cumin, and salt. Really simple. The walnuts are soaked, so they're wet. It all goes into here, just like I did the chips. Then you're going to go down to where it's kind of like crumbly hamburger, and it really gets a really great texture to it. You can pop that into the oven on a parchment sheet in a baking dish at about 200 degrees. Check it every 10 minutes, kind of stir it around, and it's just like crumbled hamburger. This is great taco meat. That's what we're making here, and it's spectacular. Or you can do it in a dehydrator. If you have a dehydrator, the Excalibur, which is my favorite, and you have Pyrex dishes, the 9x13, most people don't realize they will slide perfectly into the rails of the dehydrator. So this is a great dish to have if you've got an Excalibur. This is the Mexican meat. I made it yesterday, and it's finished. It's ready for the Buddha bowl of nachos that we're going to make later. I'm just going to leave that in the dehydrator, and the recipe is included. Chef AJ will have that on there. And so that's my faux Mexican meat that we're going to use, okay? Now I'm going to move my Cuisinart aside and pull over my Vitamix. In here, we're going to make our queso dip, a vegan queso dip, which is delicious. So I've already, this morning, cut up cauliflower, butternut squash, and potato. And I like to have russet because they're higher in the starch that really makes the cheese work the right way. Could only find yellow potatoes, but that's fine. And then, so I dice all those up, and then also put in a little bit of cashews, not a lot. There's like half a cup of cashews in there, and some shallots and garlic, and fill that up with water in a saucepan, and just cook it on a full boil down to a simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes till it's fork tender, okay? And then I put it through a colander, reserved the water, because I need that for blending. Put the ingredients in here. Now I'm ready to blend, okay? And also, to that I'm gonna add nutritional yeast, and this has B12 in it also, which vegans all need, and has that cheesy flavor that we always use in vegan cheeses. Works great. I always like to put a little bit of mustard powder in too. That's one of those little key things in a good vegan cheese that a lot of people don't think about. It gives it character in the background. So I'm going to put in some yellow mustard powder. I'm going to put in ground cumin. Cumin, by the way, is the most popular spice in the world. It's in more cuisine than any spice. And I love cumin. And I fresh grind my own. I use a sriracha. That's a little Japanese mortar pestle. It has these raked lines in it. We used to throw these in the pottery studio. They're great. And you just get a little wooden mallet. And I love the little teeth in a sriracha for breaking up cumin. Works really fantastic. I have a bigger mortar pestle here. This was actually Alice Waters' mortar pestle that she would use at the Shed teaching facility in Santa Rosa. And I got it when they were closing down. I was like, yes, I worship the energy of Alice Waters in my kitchen in the big mortar pestle. So anyway, I digress. Apple cider vinegar. Going to give the cheese a little bit of a drum, a little kick, a little bit of sour in there to balance things out. This usually has either an avocado oil or a sunflower oil. Those are the two that I like to use. But since I'm going to do this SOS for you, and trying to be as SOS as I can, I'm going to put in avocado instead of oil. Okay, that's a good fat in there that will bring that fat into the cheese. So I have about the equivalent amount of cut up avocado, a little bit more. I think it was a 1/4 cup of oil. So I'm going to put in some avocado there. Then I have miso. And this is chickpea miso. A lot of people don't realize there's a lot of different misos out there. They don't just make miso out of soy. Now they make it out of all kinds of beans. You can buy black bean, you can buy a dookie, you can buy chickpea. I love chickpea. It's mild, and it's a fermented paste, so it has good stuff for your gut in it, and it's great for the microbiome. And put that in there. Now we're ready to blend it up. And I have the fluid that it was cooked in. I'm going to put some of that in there, not all of it yet, because I want this to be thick. And I'm just going to see where we get. It's going to be loud for a second here. Looking fantastic. I'm going to put a little bit of this really bright turmeric in there for color too. So I love the color of a bright yellow turmeric. If you go to a spice store, look for one that is really bright for your cheese making. There's also darker brownish orange turmerics, but if you find a bright yellow one, buy some just for cheese making. It's great. Because I put turmeric in, got to get out the pepper cracker and crack that pepper into the top to keep that activated. Blend it up here. And we've got our cheese base. So now, taste. Always have to have tasting spoons out here when you're working with ingredients like this. It smells incredible. That's great. I didn't put salt in yet because I wanted to see what it would be like. And it's actually really good. And so I'm not going to put salt in this. And so you don't have to have the salt in there. If you like your cheese a little saltier, you can. But we'll stick with the healthy version of it. I know that your fans are, a lot of them anyway, are into the SOS. And for those that don't know out there, that's salt, oil, and sugar-free diet as much as you can. And some people are really strict about it and will not have any of it. Now I'm going to put this into a bowl here. And I'm not going to put all of it in there because I'm going to actually make this, by the way, this cheesy base here is great for broccoli soup. I'm going to save the rest of this and put some fresh broccoli that I got at farmer's market in it and make some soup out of that. So we'll just set that aside. But I've got this here. Now what I'm going to add is some of my fermented cayenne chili peppers that I made 2 weeks ago. They're fantastic. And the recipe for those is on my Facebook page under Plant Food Chef. So you can see, and by the way, when I say the recipe, it's not just the recipes, full shot by shot instructions that are very clear under each photo exactly what's going on. So you can do my recipes like you have, it's like watching a video. I have so many photos in the album when you open up a recipe on Plant Food Chef, okay? So you can see how to make these yourself. I love fermented chili peppers. I'm also going to put in, these are so incredible. Actually, I'm going to put those in the bowl, so we won't put them in the queso. But I've put some chilies in here because I'm making it a queso dip. I'm spicing it up now to make a Mexican kind of dip. I also make my own hot sauce. So I'm going to add some of that to spice it up further. This is a fermented hot sauce. And again, the recipe can be found on Plant Food Chef on Facebook. So put a little bit of that in there. Give it some more heat. I don't want to put too much in there because I don't want this to get too thin. I like my queso to be a little thick. Beautiful. So now we've got that component ready. We already have our chips. We've got some, what these are is little heirloom tomatoes that I bought at the farmer's market. And then I fermented them with oregano and onions. And so they're a fermented grape tomato, basically. And they just burst in your mouth. I love eating these. They have a little bit of effervescent bubbles inside of them as you eat them. They're fantastic on salads or tacos or anything like that. So that's another great component that we can put into this dish. I mentioned earlier that I ran into purple tomatillas at the farmer's market. And so I have those here too. And so I just put together a quick little salsa here with purple tomatillos, some onion, some cilantro, of course, and just some grape tomatoes. Okay, really easy. Squeeze some lime over the top and mix that up, and you've got a quick, easy salsa. Okay, so stir that up here. And there's nothing like a fresh salsa. Yeah, you can buy them, an organic salsa at the store, but I am a huge fan of just making them. It's so easy once you get your knife skills down, and it's good practice to sit and dice up stuff. These purple tomatillos on the inside, I'll cut one open here and show you, are purple all the way through, and the flavor is incredible. So sweet, so yummy. And I'm soaking white beans up on top of the dehydrator here because I am making today, later, purple tomatillo soup, my royal purple tomatillo soup. And it's kind of like a enchilada soup, but with purple tomatillos in it. It's fantastic. And I saw these at the farmer's market. I bought 3 pounds of them. I thought, oh yeah, it's time for royal purple tomatillo soup. So love those. Another element that I'm going to put into the Buddha bowl is red cabbage. I love red cabbage for tacos. Anything that's purple has more antioxidants and more vitamins in it. So any of your vegetables, the purple bell pepper, the purple cabbage, you know, those kind of things have more vitamins in them. I love using purple cabbage. This is really blood red. What you do is squeeze a little lime on there and massage it up and let it sit for a half hour before you're going to use it. And then it gets a really delicate, soft mouthfeel in a taco. It's really nice. And the lime adds another depth of flavor mixed in with everything else in your taco. I sprouted some black beans and cooked them and had some extras in the fridge. So I got out some black beans. We'll put that in there. And the last thing I have here is I made a sour cream. So this one is half cashew, half coconut meat. And you can open young Thai coconuts, but it's much easier now. And I'm sorry, I'm walking off screen for just a second so I can grab this and show you. You can look for this in your store and request it if they don't have it. And see if you can get your store to buy this. This is the Zuma Valley tender young coconut meat. You can buy it in a package in the freezer now at the store and save yourself the hassle of having to open up the young Thai coconuts and having all those husks to get rid of. And it's kind of a pain in the butt, to tell you the truth. I can do it if I have to, but these are so much easier. They're organic. It's great. You always know you have white, beautiful coconut meat in these little packets in here. And if you've opened a lot of young Thai coconuts, you know that sometimes half of them have pink, weird meat in them. You always know you're getting good white meat when you buy this. So I highly recommend it. And why did I put cashews and coconut? You can, if you're not allergy, you can actually do just the coconut meat, and it works great for this same recipe. But I like to mix up the flavor palette. I oftentimes when I'm making a cream, I will put 2 different kinds of nuts in. Then it doesn't just taste like almond, or doesn't just taste like macadamia, or doesn't just taste like coconut. So by mixing little cashews with coconut, now I have more of a blank palette that I can flavor out how I want, okay? And what I did is I blended this up yesterday, and then I put in some Ejuva, and that's just a probiotic powder. And by the way, I noticed that one of your guests was mentioning that she was not a fan of probiotic powders in fermenting cheeses a few days ago. I can't remember which one it was. What I would point out to her, because she was holding up a bottle that is the kind that you can buy on the dry shelf in the store, buy them from the refrigerator section. They cost more, but they're alive and they're active. You open those caplets and put them in, and it's going to take off like a freight train for you and ferment overnight, okay? It does work to use the powders. Or you can buy bulk powder. The Ejuva, it's EJUVA.com. You can buy bulk powder if you want. Store it in your freezer. It lasts forever. And that's what I used in this, just a 1/4 teaspoon overnight. Now it has a nice tang to it. Really nice. It's already like cream cheese. It has a kind of cream cheese flavor to it. Okay, so that's my base for my sour cream. I am going to put a little bit of nutritional yeast in there and just a touch of salt. You don't have to put the salt in if you don't want. To my liking, I like a little bit of it in there. And then I'm putting in dried chipotle chilies that I've soaked overnight. Okay, so we're making a chipotle sour cream. That's what this is. This will have heat to it. I like heat. I like spicy. So now we'll blend that chipotle in there. That rocks. Whew, it's got a kick, but that's okay. For me, that's good. If you don't like it that spicy, just put in a 1/4 of a dried chipotle. Chipotle is a smoked jalapeno pepper, so it brings that smoky flavor in there too. I love using dried peppers in different ways, and that one is really delicious. I'm going to clear away my workspace here, and we're just going to put together our final plating of our nachos.
I hope I can find the purple tomatillas. They're beautiful. I've never seen them.
This is the time of year to look. If you go down to Santa Barbara Farmers Market, try there. You're in LA area, right?
No, I'm actually near Palm Springs. So Santa Barbara's quite a ways away now.
Oh, yeah, it is. I love that farmers market, though. I was down visiting Matthew Kenny's place back when Christina Achilla was teaching there. I love her. She's so fantastic.
Karen says she wishes you were her personal chef. And Brenda H is watching live and says, thanks for the shout out. I'm trying to find the link to her fabulous product and put it here because those are amazing.
Creations.com. Love her stuff, all of her stuff. And she's a beautiful person too. She's very, very cool. So, hi, Brenda. I'm going to get out some tweezers here and put together my bowl of, I don't want to get my hands all purple here with this red cabbage. I've learned that, and when I was cutting this cabbage ahead of time today, I put on some gloves, some latex gloves, or not latex, but vinyl gloves, because before a demo, I've been cutting red cabbage and had total bright red hands for the entire demo, because the dye in it will definitely get on your hands. So I'm just going to create a beautiful Buddha bowl here. Let me grab the meat also with some different ingredients. So this is going to be a deconstructed taco. So what you could think of this as. We've got our red cabbage, our meat, some black beans. And by the way, I soaked these for 8 hours, and then I sprouted them overnight. I do that to all my beans, and that takes the gassiness away from them, okay? Always soak your beans. Always soak your beans. I don't care what a pressure cooker tells you about. Grab the dry beans and just throw them in. You can do that, but then you're going to regret it later. And you're going to be coming out both ends with gas. You know? So soak your beans. It's a good thing to do. And then they cook super, super fast in the pressure cooker, like in minutes, because they've already had a good soaking all the way through, okay? And what I did is I put into the pressure cooker with them some poblano dried chilies. So these have a different chili flavor than my other components here. And so they have a Mexican flavor to them already. You could certainly make black refried beans with these if you want to go that route. And I'm mixing, if you want to do this recipe just raw, don't put the black beans in, by the way. I'm doing my cooked raw fusion here, okay? And that's the way I fly in my life. Back when I was telling you about my healing journey, that was when I decided, and I became so passionate and involved in the colors and the aliveness of the food I was making and what it was doing to my body. It became infectious. And so I got a settlement after that accident, and I immediately bought my way all the way through Living Light, went through gourmet, everything, went to yoga teacher training in Mexico because I got my body back, and just turned a new leaf. And when I graduated from Living Light and was on I-5 driving home, I got a call on my cell phone and they hired me as a teacher. So after I did my yoga teacher training, I went right back and started teaching at Living Light. And within 3 years had become the culinary director. That's living your passion and making and your manifestations coming to life, okay? But at Living Light, I really did realize that living foods and pure 100% raw foods were a part of my healing journey and a very necessary part in getting that pH balance that I wanted, but it's not what I wanted to do at home. I love legumes, and they're an important part of a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet. And I have been vegetarian since the 80s. I was pescatarian for many years because I would still eat salmon and some fish. Okay, so I was very aware of the proteins that legumes and nuts and seeds bring into your diet. And I wasn't willing to drop that. And you really have to in the raw food diet, other than a few little things like lentils that you can sprout and eat. Even those I like to steam a little. If they're raw, they can be hard on the gut. Like I'm not into sprouted garbanzo beans, which some people think is fine. I think it flips everyone's gut. I'm going to steam them. I'll sprout them, but then I'm going to steam them and make them more palatable for your stomach. So I found this, that I was teaching 100% raw at school, and that was fine because that was what our curriculum was. But at home, it was very different for me because I was infusing it with different cooked methods. So that's where I came up with the cooked raw fusion, which actually became a course at Living Light before I left there. And it was very popular for the last 2 years. And I loved it. So I've just put my cabbage, my meat, my beans, my salsa, and then I'm going to nestle a little glass bowl in on the side here and put my queso in that, okay? I think that's the best way to do this. Put that on the side. This cheese isn't like Velveeta or these weird cheeses that they pour on nachos and melt onto nachos because it has high water content, vegetables in it, and it's going to make your chips soggy if you just pour it all over them. So I don't recommend that. Do a deconstructed kind of nachos where you play around with it. Then you can take your chips and stick them in around your bowl here. like so. And then you can take some of your sour cream, your chipotle sour cream, and just put a dollop here and there. And this is fun food. I like multiple component kind of food. I love Thai food for that reason. I love Asian food where you have a bunch of mise en place of different kinds of ingredients on the table and you get to play. Ooh, this bite, I'm going to have some of the salsa and the meat. This bite, I'm going to have some of the cabbage and the beans. This bite, I'm going to have the queso and the salsa. You know, and you can, every bite is playtime. Okay. So here, and then of course, what would it be without some beautiful cilantro on top? And I probably would dice and throw a bunch of chopped cilantro on there too. And then I've got my fermented tomatoes here too. Let's not forget to put those on. These are incredible. I highly recommend that you try, if you've never tried it. I was growing these at the last house, not this one, where I had a huge garden, and I had them coming out my ears. And I ferment. My kids call me the fermentation station. You open my fridge and there's all kinds of stuff growing in there. And so it didn't take long before I learned that I could ferment the grape tomatoes that I had all over my garden. So here we have our Buddha bowl of queso dip with chipotle, sour cream, our fermented tomatoes, and the chips, wonderful, incredible, crunchy corn chips, black beans, the faux meat, the lime-soaked cabbage. This is a deconstructed taco that will blow your mind. I guarantee you this will, and this is festive holiday food. That's why I brought it up this time of year. All these colors are so incredibly beautiful. And anyone that's from Latin America will tell you that's the time of year, a great time of year to do the festive colors of Latin America. So I hope you've enjoyed that. This is one of my favorite recipes to show people. It's always a showstopper when I do it at Veg Fests. And so enjoy.
Well, you have literally blown my mind and everybody else's. You're just, it's obvious you are just such a talented chef and just a wonderful presenter. It's just, wow, what an honor. You are amazing.
Thank you. And like I told you, if you have any cancellations, give me a call. I've got.
Oh, you know I will. Thank you so much. That looks, you made us so hungry. Thank you so much, Chef James.
Yeah, and plantfoodchef.com will be up. I'm building a blog site, which actually will be a teaching site also. So watch for that. Plant Food Chef. Just remember that on Instagram, on Pinterest, on Facebook. You can follow me and get great directions with photos on how to make a myriad of different foods, living foods and cooked vegan. And sometimes you mix like we did here.
I think it's the best of both worlds. Well, mind blowing is all I can say. I am in awe of your talent. And Chef Brenda is watching. I've invited her to come on, and we've posted the link to those wonderful templates, which I've never heard of. See, I always learn at least one new thing on every show. And I've learned two new things: the purple tomatillo. So it's been fantastic. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow when we have two other amazing culinary demos at 11 a.m. Denise Borchard, who raised all of her children vegan, is going to be demonstrating with her family a creamy sweet potato soup and savory tofu recipe. And at 2 p.m., a medical doctor named Dr. Salsa is going to be demonstrating kitchery. Thanks so much, everyone. It's so nice to meet you, James.
You too. Have a beautiful
Bye-bye.